Thank you guys so much. Thank you also to Audio Technica for having us here today. I am so excited, first of all, to be here celebrating your first studio record. Can we just say that? For Mr. Jon Lampley here. First studio record. It's a really big deal. And I kind of wanted to have a conversation sort of through the guise of my personal journey with you. Figured that would be relevant tonight. I first met Jon at the Bridge. He was actually recording for a different band altogether. And then slowly but surely, he started booking sessions for Notes to Self. And, I was trying to understand the enigma that was Jon Lampley. I knew he played with The Late Show, and I knew he toured with all these amazing artists. And then I would only get anecdotes from our engineers, because for some reason, every time he booked a session, I would never be available. I wouldn't be able to go to the studio. And all I would hear was, out of all the sessions we have, they would just say, "You don't understand what happened today. We were basically crying in the control room." Or our assistant engineer was just like, "I love my people." Like by the end of it, and I was like, what's going on in there? So, fast forward. I can't even, it makes me just choked up to talk about it, but I slowly got to know you. And he then told me he wanted to book a live recording. And I'll circle back to this album, but that moment when he started talking to me about the power of live music and how much live music means to me, and we do live recordings at the Bridge Studio, and he was like, "I want to do one." And he started pitching me as to why it was important, why he thinks it's a good idea. And I was like, "That's why I think it's a good idea. What are you doing? You're pitching me on my series. This is crazy." And I was like, yes. The whole coffee, I was just nodding my head. Yes. And then I still had no idea the vocal chops on this guy. I had no idea. I was like, trumpet player. I'm like, is his album going to be all horns? It was. So fast forward, first of all, this album, you are an artist being your fullest, authentic, artistic self in every way possible. It is an expression of you. And I will get back to the live side, and I will let you talk. But from my perspective, the journey of Notes to Self for me is such a beautiful reflection of your humanity. How you take joy, you take hope, and the message of gratitude. And at the end of it, you make us walk away. It's like one thing to say, be joyous, have gratitude. But when you come away and you say, this is how we will persevere, and it's actually a choice you make every day. And the craziest thing, getting to know you as a human, is that you make that choice all the time in the world, all the time, in the hardest moments possible, probably. And that's who you are to me, and that's what this album is to me. So congratulations. Yeah. So we just had to start with a little shout out, then we could get into the particulars. Tell us about this moment. You've gone from this whole amazing chapter, coming off The Late Show. Lots of people know you as a trumpet player. Your community knows you as so much more. So what does this feel like to have this moment finally to show the world who you are?
Thank you for saying all that really nice stuff, by the way.
Yeah.
Something I've been thinking a lot about in the last 2 months is how it feels like whenever there's an ending in my life, it precedes a beginning. And there have been a lot of personal things that have happened where it felt like something, or vice versa, like something amazing happens, like you get a call to be the trumpet player on The Late Show, and then 3 months later, you lose your dad. But on the other side of that, you hear Stephen Colbert say on live television that The Late Show gets canceled, and then 9 months later, you're on stage with Paul McCartney playing your trumpet while texting somebody about the logistics of the album you made that's getting ready to come out in a few weeks. And I think this album particularly, and working on it, has represented a beginning for me that's been a long time coming. And I'm really grateful tonight that all of you that are here kind of know me from different, pieces, whether it be, I play basketball with you, or you were, integral in finding the right word to make the most vulnerable song on the album actually hit, and then everybody in between. And I think that, hopefully something that entire cross-section understands about me is whether I'm up, whether I'm down, I try to keep kind of what you were saying, this attitude of gratitude and positivity about me. And what was really interesting about making this album was trying to create something that expressed that musically and lyrically, while also trying to explore, how do you feel when you're not necessarily feeling the most grateful or the most happy? And so, like, a song like Greener, while it's kind of this joyous anthem, it's also exploring, like, why am I always comparing myself to people around me? Or, the song Maybe, that's me really trying to, like, deal with my church kid trauma in a way that, like, anybody else can understand. So to, like, be here today and to be celebrating kind of this beginning in this album at the end of a really, kind of incredible and amazing thing that is wrapping up, I'm very excited about it. It feels very surreal, but mostly I'm very grateful to be kind of surrounded by people that I really love, and that the people that I really love, that, people that I've known for a couple years, the person that taught me how to play the trumpet, even yourself, somebody who has become a very good friend very quickly. I'm just immensely grateful to be able to celebrate this moment with all of you.
Thank you. I think the thing I'd love to touch on a little bit is sort of you talked about community. These are very near and dear people to you. But I also felt that in the album too. So can you tell us a little bit more about the making of and, the people and the featured amazing artists that you've brought on, and would love a little bit on that.
Absolutely. We can go to the beginning of this project because literally everybody's here. When I was on tour, start from the beginning. I started touring with a band called OAR in 2011. I was 21 years old. I was still living in a dorm at college. And I went from that to, like, living on a tour bus where I was really I'd never seen coconut water before. And to go from that to being on stage with this group of guys who had known each other since 8th grade and were filling amphitheaters and stadiums was a very surreal thing. And the front man of that band, Mark Roberge, was always incredibly kind to me, even when I was in this mode of, like, let me stay out of his way because that's, like, the boss. And I'll never forget, I was backstage just, like, I don't know, riffing around on vocals. And he stopped me. He was like, man, like, we got to get you a microphone on stage because you can actually sing. And you need to sing more. And I was like, very comfortable on the trumpet, very confident in myself. But Mark said that to me, and it kind of just, like, set off a chain of events where I began to feel a lot more comfortable singing in front of people. They did put the microphone up, and at the beginning, I know that the mic wasn't very loud in the mix. I've listened back to those recordings. But it got to the point where, Mark wrote a song called Peace, and he was like, hey, man, I'd love you to sing the second verse on this song, in front of a lot of people. And that kind of belief in me before I was even writing any songs, like, eventually he was the one to push me to start writing songs. And then, later on, shortly after moving here to New York, I met who, now I would say people consider them New York legends, the band Lawrence, led by Clyde and Gracie Lawrence. And I've always just been very blown away, not just by, the songs that they write and the way that they present shows and how that's built, but also just what you were talking about. They are a band that's rooted in community with each other. Their fan base is a community that rallies around each other. And so when I started to write these songs, they were some of the first people that I thought of in terms of, like, how do I get these ideas in my head to sound really, really cool? I was like, wait a minute. I know some people that are really good at that. And I'm very grateful that they said yes and worked with me to kind of write and mold these songs. Before it got to them, though, I have to say that I would send like voice memos to my friend Michael Thurber, who is we all know Michael Thurber. We can't forget about Mike Thurber, who is an incredible bassist, incredible composer, and essentially taught himself to be an incredible producer. And I would send him these ideas. I was like, does this song suck? Is it okay? And he would be like, yo, man, let's link. Let's build these out. And so I sent my little demos to him, and he got them to a place where when I brought them to Clyde and Jordan and Johnny of the Diner, it was like there was some meat on the bones. And then over the course of a year, being able to turn those ideas into what you hear on the album, it was a very surreal experience and also a very collaborative experience. I think that the only way I know how to make music and make art is in community. I find that it's the music that I like to listen to the most, music that's born out of community. And, you know, there are people that go into a room by themselves and come out and it's a masterpiece. And I just know that I will always want my process to be collaborative, both featuring people on the album, but also kind of working with people, seeing their process and kind of learning from that. And so immensely grateful. And to cap it off, I will say that obviously this is a big leap for me kind of presenting myself as a songwriter, but I will always want the horn to be kind of the central figure of what I'm doing. And to have the person that literally taught me how to play the instrument, Kenyatta Beasley over there, like, it's, you know.
You taught yourself.
No, it's like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of us musicians, it's like you take lessons from your college instructor and then you move on and you don't really keep in touch with them. So to have the person that I took my first trumpet lessons with become literally a neighbor to me and like invite me to his house to watch basketball and then invite me into this space to co-host a podcast and continue to show me things and also just continue to like inspire me by making his own records and being like, bro, like just keep going, don't quit. I'm immensely grateful for all of these people to be a part of my community and to be pushing me to like now make my own music. Thank you guys.
Well, it felt really evident to me, but I want to also shed a little bit of light of what led up to this. Underneath all of the late show and everything and the touring you were doing with so many musicians was night service. Right. And your live element, which has, tell me who's been to one of his shows, I'm sure many of you, yes. So again, my journey with Jon was very like kind of backwards, right? So I got to know him just as a human being, and then slowly but surely started realizing the artist he is. And lo and behold, books a live recording session at the Bridge Studio. And I still don't know what I'm about to walk into, right? I know it's going to be amazing, but, you know, who knows? I'm sure it's going to be great, but I had no idea. And I introduce you, and I literally leave the live room to go deal with dealing with the dishes or something just real quick and make sure everything's set while everyone's in the live room. And then I hear this like cacophony of voices and like chatter and loud speaking of like dozens of people just like da 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 da. And I'm like, what happened? Did a mic fall? Did something go wrong? I like bust into the live room and he's in the middle of the live room just handshaking, everybody saying hello, everyone's introducing themselves to each other. I get walked up to, hey, my name is so-and-so. And I'm just like in a state of shock. And then I'm sucked in. So then I'm like part of the train at this point. Whatever I was about to do didn't matter anymore. And boom, and then you just literally unlocked. So there's one thing between the artist and the audience. There's that amazing energy exchange, which I'm fully addicted to, and that's why we do what we do at the Bridge. But you unlocked like this third level of energy, which is really hard to do in a live show, where you break down the walls between the people in the room. So it's like, I feel like I'm here with you, but all of a sudden, the community around me suddenly lights up. And I have a relationship with them all of a sudden. And then that show ends up being a full-on, totally different experience. So not only was that shock number one, then he starts singing. And your voice is like literally an extension of not just your horn playing, but like this soulful sort of like communication device that is just like, again, an extension of that. So I wouldn't even categorize them separately. It is just like part of the whole package. And that was like shock number 2 for me. And it was so authentic and just so real, and it just flowed, and it was very impactful as a live show audience member. And that's what's so exciting to me is like, this is like, for me, Notes to Self is a foray into get like, hey, you like this? Come to the live show.
Yeah.
Just wait,
Yeah, man. I know there's at least one person in here that grew up in the kind of church that I did. Well. And I think that's Louis Cato, by the way, if anybody's wondering. And I think that it is impossible to create music for me without kind of approaching the process with that essence. And the type of church that we grew up in, it was like you couldn't start the music, you couldn't start the service until the tone was right amongst the people. And I think a big part of the tone amongst the people is not just this tone of anticipating, like, oh my gosh, we're about to see a really awesome show, but this tone of feeling comfortable with one another. One of the cool things about concerts, one of the cool things about events like this is like you have people coming together who don't know each other, different kind of jobs, different kind of family situations, and everybody's in the same room and is very excited about what's about to happen on stage because they all have their own relationship with the music and the artist. But I think the question that I ask myself is, how do I get these people not just to be excited about what's going to happen on stage, but to be excited about each other? Because I think when you're able to kind of start with that, it changes the way that people experience the music together. And so really with Night Service and with that project at the Bridge, I was trying to find ways to unlock that. And then it's like, okay, well, how do you get that to translate in an album that is like not live, where there's no audience? And I think that with this album, with the songwriting, and also just like with the feel of the songs, like there are many songs where you can just hear like chatter in the background, or the song Joy, we had an incredible session at the Bridge with a choir, and a lot of what made the record is just the choir in between the takes yelling, and people, oh, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, there's something that does when you're listening to it. It makes you feel comfortable. It makes you feel, at ease. And I think that changes the way that you can interact with the music that you're listening to. And so I think something that I'll be striving for my entire career is how to continue to create that feeling, not just between the listener and my music, but between all of the listeners and each other, to help them kind of like have this communion with each other that I believe then makes experiencing the music even more transcendent. So we're doing our best,
Sure are. Another sort of community sort of theme here, I'd love to talk a little bit about Dock of the Bay.
Oh, of course.
There's something so magical about that song. I know you have a history with the song as well, personal history, but also like, I swear, between Lawrence and Louis Cato, it felt like I literally could see you guys. That's your musical community. It felt like you're literally sitting on a dock. Like if there were a music video, a sunset, and like the boat's just like got the camera on you. I felt like I was there with you, you know? And I feel like that's how everyone would hear it.
I mean, I would say that the most magical thing about that track is that the rhythm section is one person. And for those of you who don't know, Louis Cato, bandleader at The Late Show of the Great Big Joy Machine, is an incredible vocalist, an incredible guitar player, but also an incredible bassist, an incredible drummer, and an incredible just everything. And so literally, like, I knew I wanted to do this song because it was my dad's favorite song, and he couldn't sing, but when he would sing it, he would sing it with all his heart. And I think, a lot of what I'm trying to channel, when I think about how I learned to sing, I've listened to people like Otis Redding, who kind of influenced this generation that went down from like Maxwell, D'Angelo to the modern day soul singers. So I think that was a song that I really wanted to be on the record, and I wanted to do it kind of in that neo-soul, Soulquarian, D'Angelo, Roy thing. And I knew that there's like only one person in the universe, not even in this world, but like in all of the worlds, that can tap into that. So I just emailed Cato, And I was like, hey, man, here's my scratch crappy demo of like my basic arrangement of how I want this song to go. Can you do the thing? Like very not specific. And then like in a week, he sent me back the stems and he was like, is this what you were thinking, bro? And I was like, yes. And basically brought that to Clyde and Gracie. And in the spirit of collaboration, I was like, man, I would love for you guys to do your thing on this song with me. And it turned into, you know, it's one of my favorite tracks on the album. It's a tribute to my dad, but it's also just kind of like a tribute to the music that I grew up listening to. And genuinely, like, everybody in this room, like, when you go home or if you're watching this on YouTube, go YouTube a video of Louis Cato playing drums. And then you'll understand. But no, it really was cool how that came together, and you guys are the best.
So, now that the big day has arrived, we have to ask, what's next?
Right, what is next? You know, that seems to be the vibe where it's like you hit a mountaintop and it's like, well, I'm already thinking like 6 months in the future. But honestly, right now in this moment today, what's next is playing some music for my friends in this room and then us like enjoying drinks and food together. Because so many of us in this room who are creatives or people who manage creatives or people who, you know, are creating brands and this and that, you work so hard for something and then you get to it and you're like, oh, this is awesome, but I'm already thinking about the next one. And specifically, I think right now in this moment, I'm really happy to be with all of you. And so I will say, for now, what is next other than, you know, a show at the Blue Note next week? What's next in this immediate moment is to play some songs with my friends and then for all of us to eat, drink, and be merry and to appreciate each other's company and celebrate some new music in the world together.
Thank you, Jon Lampley, and congratulations on
yeah.
Notes to Self.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic record.
Mona, thank you so much.
You're welcome.